Do you ever wonder if your phone is changing who you are? Not just your attention, but your perception. What you think is normal. How time feels. What a face should look like. And, on a collective scale, what democracy itself means. These are the subtle shifts, so quiet you barely notice them, until you can't remember what, unfiltered, ever felt like. Let's zoom out, rewind to the analog 80s and 90s, and then come back to the present. Here, the screen isn't just a window, it's the lens through which we see ourselves, each other, and society. We carry a library in our pocket, so we feel like we know everything. But breadth isn't depth. The stream gives us fragments, headlines without histories, takes without context, answers without understanding. We're flooded, but still thirsty. Consider a museum day. A visitor photographs every painting. Later, they can't recall what they saw, only that they captured it. The act of documenting replaced the act of seeing. In the 90s, you waited for a Sunday paper or an evening newscast. There were fewer touchpoints, but deeper sit-downs. Today, you can skim 300 micro-stories before breakfast and remember almost none. The scroll trains a breadth-first brain. Comment culture rewards quick certainty over slow humility. We start to mistake exposure for expertise. This matters collectively, because democracies depend on depth, deliberation, context, and memory. When we feel like we know it all, we get quicker to judge. Screens can thin out the human. Faces become avatars. Stories become takes. We speak to usernames, not nervous systems. Dehumanization spreads faster when we don't see the eyes. Think of the hot take you'd never say at dinner, typed in 3 seconds. Or the perfect life slideshow that makes you feel smaller. In the 80s and 90s, disagreement traveled slower. You argued at the bar, then you went home. Today, outrage has no closing time. When compassion shrinks, polarization grows. Outrage becomes a business model. Studies show that feeds amplify content that triggers anger, because anger keeps us scrolling. But outrage-driven ecosystems don't just change moods, they destabilize public trust. While empathy shrinks, something else warps: time itself. Notifications are tiny drills in our attention. Even unopened, they raise cognitive load. The body reads it as urgency. The day becomes a series of micro-alarms, and politics, too, begins to live at the pace of the ping. Imagine waiting for coffee. 10 seconds feels long. You pull out your phone. The moment you might have looked around is gone. Patience erodes. Offline life feels too slow for a nervous system trained on infinite loops. In the 90s, you missed a call. The call missed you back. Voicemail waited. Today, reply time equals respect. Democracy once had weeks of debate. Now we expect instant reactions. When citizens are trained to prefer brevity over patience, long democratic processes feel unbearable. Complexity feels illegitimate. Governance gets squeezed into tweet-length soundbites. And when time warps, reality itself starts to bend. Filters smooth the skin. Edits stretch the day. The feed defines what's normal. Poreless faces, perfect homes, lives paced to the soundtrack of achievement. When the virtual standard rises, the real looks wrong. Consider the camera flip. You open the front camera and flinch. The mirror you grew up with showed you once or twice a day. Now you see a self-broadcast version. Lit, cropped, curated. The gap between you and your image widens. Disposable cameras offered 24 shots per roll. You didn't zoom in to pause. You developed memories, not brand identities. Metrics make life a scoreboard. Likes, views, and streaks become proxies for truth. Collective reality warps. Elections tilted by viral misinformation. Norms bent by manufactured outrage. A 2014 experiment even showed that tweaking feeds could shift emotional tone at a population scale. So, if the lens can tilt this much, how do we take back the frame? Reclaiming perception isn't about quitting screens, it's about designing the interface between your eyes and your life. And it's not just personal wellness, it's civic hygiene. Democracies require citizens who can pause, reflect, and resist instant manipulation. Grey out your phone after sunset. Night shift or grayscale reduces novelty and doom scroll drag. Conduct a notification audit. Turn off non-human alerts. If it isn't a person, it can wait. Embrace a depth diet. One long read for every 20 short hits. Incorporate analog anchors, a paper notebook, printed photos, a weekly phone-free walk. Prioritize face-to-face interaction. Send the message, but book the coffee. Screens don't just show us the world, they shape the world we can see. If we reclaim attention at the personal scale, we reclaim clarity at the collective scale. Only then can democracy look less like a filter and more like a life we build together.